You were all, simply put, good people.
The point of the video was to make them all confront what kind of people they were on Earth. Keep a close eye on our 4 subjects. Try to gauge their reactions, the subtlest glances, the tiniest flinches.
What about shaking someone by the head? What does that mean?
Oh boy.
Hey, Simone, everything okay?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. None of this is real.
Sorry?
I'm a neuroscientist, so I get what's going on here. Clearly I was in some kind of horrible accident. I'm on my deathbed, and this entire thing is just a hallucination constructed by my damaged brain as it slowly shuts down. It's not real. So I'm just going to wander around until I wake up or die. See you later, figments of my imagination.
She's just gonna go get some popcorn. From the river. There's a popcorn river. I'll show you guys later. She said keep going without her, so let's roll it. Janet, make a popcorn river.
Every time it's been a few weeks since we've last recorded and I get to see your face, I get to hang out with you, I genuinely, now I'm putting it on a little bit because we've pressed record and now it's a show and we have to be a little bit closer friends. I feel like a weight lifted off my shoulders a little bit. It's so nice. There's so much going on, and I mean, it's like first world problem stuff, and everybody's problems, but in my personal life, there's so much going on, and then I get to step into this weird little cubby in my apartment that's very small. Like, this is like 5 by 5, maybe.
Sure.
It's a very small cubby in my apartment that I get to come to once a week, or right now, like a couple times a month because of how we're recording, and I feel silly and light and a weight lifted off my shoulders. It's really
Would you say
nice.
You feel pretty? You feel pretty? You feel
I feel
pretty
witty.
and witty? And gay.
Look, you wouldn't be the first to call that upon me. I do agree. Yes. Remember on Glee? Yes, welcome to the show. We're back. It's been a minute. I'm talking about Glee.
Time.
Remember on Glee, they did a mashup of I Feel Pretty with a song called Unpretty? Do you know this
maybe
song?
I did see. Was that?
And it kind of worked. It kind of worked. I think it was Kurt and Rachel.
Of course, yeah. Who
that
else?
was in one of the first couple seasons, I feel like. You probably saw that one.
I saw that one.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Into the Time Knife. Officially, we're back in action to kick off the final season of both The Good Place and of Into the Time Knife. That's right. If you haven't been listening to us in a while, we haven't gone anywhere. So go back. Check out the podcast we did last week on The Selection, the Good Place
did
web
a couple
series.
of fun things the last 2 weeks.
And we did some bonus episodes, one of which being, if you just overlooked it, the first of the 4 options for our next Rewatch podcast that we're going to let you all decide between, vote between later
It's
next
really
year. It's still
good.
2023 right now, is I Think You Should Leave. So go check out that podcast and see if maybe it'll get your vote in a couple of months. But we've got a lot to get into. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Into the Time Knife. I'm Zach, and before we really officially start the podcast, can I have a hug?
You got it, Zach. And I'm Steven, and I just came to fix myself Derek, and then I'll be on my way.
That feels so Derek. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It's so good to see you. I hope you're all well. I hope the month of December has been kicking itself off pleasantly for all of you out there. It's almost the middle of December already. Christmas is coming up fast. How are you feeling about that?
I hear those sleigh bells ring-a-ling, jing, jingling you.
Nope. 1 or 2 of those words were right. You got sleigh bells, I think. Steven, how are you? It's so good to see you, genuinely. I just bonked my brand new microphone.
Bonk!
I guess before I ask you, forget it. I don't care how you are.
Yeah.
We've got to shout out our $10 and up
We've gotta
patrons
shout.
over at patreon.com.
We gotta scream and
disappoint
shout and let it
podcast.
all out. We gotta scream and shout and let it all out. We gotta scream and shout and let it all out. We gotta
saying,
scream.
oh, we, oh,
Will I am
yo,
and
yo.
Britney, bitch.
I got to tell you something. that's going to make a lot of sense for my character. You will know this to be true. It will not surprise you.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that song is from the section of the polka medley that Weird Al does on every album where he performed the chorus of that. That's the only version of that song I've ever heard. I know that melody like the back of my own Derek, and it's because of Weird Al.
That all tracks. Britney Spears made great pop music.
Absolutely. And Weird Al did some great polka renditions of several. We have to start out the show by shouting out our $10 and up patrons. Those are, of course, Mary Baker Budisa, Danny M. Lugo, Justin Fortier, and Little S. Haker, fresh off the set of...
Little S. Haker.
What was the name for the Little Rascals before the Little Rascals?
Our Gang.
Our Gang, fresh off the set of Our Gang 2, the Netflix reboot. Lil S. Haker. Thank you to our patrons. Major shout out to our patrons this week because over our last recording break, thanks in direct compensation from the patrons of Can't Disappoint Podcast, I got myself a new microphone, a nice one. A nicer microphone, but we both now have than I think when we started this, we would have ever thought we'd be using for this type of thing.
I was still using my Snowball microphone. No offense, Snowball. Great starting out mic, but it's definitely I make Minecraft videos in 2010 microphone versus I do a podcast microphone.
And I was using up until last time. I mean, I've changed my audio interface, so I kind of upgraded. Like I've made us sound better over the years, but I've been using the same entry-level, nice enough Audio-Technica microphone for all 3 years. And now I took the fresh deposit from our patrons that I've saved up over the last few months, and I went to www.google.com, looked up, of course, what microphone do they use on the Joe Rogan Experience, saw $400, Jesus Christ, but if Daddy Joe says that's what it costs.
If it's good enough for Joe Rogie.
But thank you for the patrons, I'm excited, I hope I sound good.
Joseph Rogano.
And if you'd like to support us, there's other things we've been thinking about adding to the show here.
I'd like kidney.
Yeah, but I've got a couple things on my list before we get to little peon things like that.
Gallbladder
I'd really
would be
like to have a muscular Latin X-Man shirtless to feed me grapes throughout the podcast.
Less expensive than you'd think.
That's what Joe Rogan does, so I want to be just like him. I just really think it would be nice for the couple of minutes in each podcast where I'm not recapping the episode, if I could turn back a little bit and have fucking Sergio feed me one of those long Moondrop grapes.
Yeah, it's got to be the Moondrop.
So patreon.com/Can't Disappoint Podcast. We do you Can't Dis a pre-show live every time we record this podcast, which you get a week early every time we record. You get our That 70s Show Rewatch podcast, The Basement. Even if you're only like half interested in a That 70s Show Rewatch podcast, if you like us, The Basement is the most unfiltered, ridiculous
certainly
half hour of our podcasting week. So starting at $5 a month over at patreon.com/Can't Disappoint Podcast. Get that and a whole lot more. Or if you want to get a little preview taste of everything we do over there, you can become a member for free.
For free. You get a little like hamster water dispenser tongues worth.
Well, I want to move things along fairly quickly because we've got a lot to get into today. It's the final season premiere of The Good Place. We're already deep into the podcast. So I want us to touch just a minute on our break that we've had. Why don't you give me 1-2 highlights of the time we've spent apart, and I'll do the same.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to give you like the Cliff's Notes versions of both my highlights.
That's exactly what I just asked. Now we're taking more time
I'm
to
just going to give you one, maybe
the
two.
Concept.
Started watching a new anime that's called like My 100 Girlfriends That Really, 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 Really Love You.
Thought maybe you'd start with like a personal development, like you became pregnant, you contracted.
That's later. That stuff's
type
tertiary.
B hepatitis over the break. That you might bring something like that up. But the first thing always on mine is I began watching a television program.
Yeah, really cute anime, likable characters. If you like harem anime, that's the one for you. And other news, I had a really fun time with my family and Danny in Indiana for Thanksgiving. I made the yams. I got to spend some time with my grandma. It was wonderful.
I'd probably consider you like family, if I'm making a list and you say spent with family. I get a call from your
Sit
grandma.
with your family. As soon as you left, I was there.
All day on Thanksgiving, I was like, well, I've got 3 to get to. Still just waiting on that ping from Steven, and that'll be my 3rd stop for the day. And it just never came. And I just sat outside all day shivering, waiting for you to show up in the old hitchback truck to pick me up and take me for Thanksgiving catch.
I did tell you I would pick you up at about noon.
We go
you
fishing.
were out there for hours. Yeah, exactly. Thanksgiving fishing.
What was
Just a couple
that?
of boys.
A harem? Something about a harem in there somewhere?
Yeah. One guy, 100 girlfriends.
What was the best food? Your favorite Thanksgiving food?
So my just favorite thing to put in my mouth is dressing.
Dressing, yes. That's mine too.
I'm a dressing boy. Love some good dressing. Throw the juice on it. I like dressing. I like yams. I like mac and cheese. And all 3 of those were there and in abundance and made my stomach very happy.
I did bring you up at Thanksgiving because everyone was talking about stuffing, and I said, well, my good friend Steven, who should be here any minute to pick me up with some fishing poles and bait and tackle.
Gotta get your bait
we might
and
go
tackle.
for a tussle out in the yard before we head out, if that's okay. He'll be here. He likes to bring up that calling it stuffing is wrong and that you should call it dressing because stuffing would be what you call it if it's inside the turkey, if it's stuffing. And everyone was like, yeah, that's true. So
then they all collectively let out Negro, and then everyone went on with their day.
Yeah. Well, that was at my Thanksgiving, so it tracks. Hi, everybody. Oh, I want to say,
what did you do, Zach? Tell us about your time, your time away.
Well,
locked away.
I did want to talk about
clink.
some things, but you pulled an aside out of me when you were talking about how anime is the first thing that comes to mind, even though you spent time with family, you've had new things happen. When I was a kid at Christian school, every day we would have like a group prayer at a certain time, and people would throw in prayer requests or praises, which they'd say something that they're worried about, or they'd say something that they're excited about. And more than one time, because these were the days of TiVo, where you'd like set up a show to record in perpetuity, and I had to have permission because I was taking up too much of the space to record all of my shows.
That tracks.
I remember on several occasions, my praise was that I had been permitted to add another show to my season passes on TiVo. Ripley's Believe It or Not was the one I specifically remember.
Well, that's all God's doing.
Because
He gave you that TiVo.
I was just like, I'm excited about something. What are we supposed to do? We're sharing things. It's stupid. But I had a teacher say to me, cute. I don't think that's worth praising. That's why I remember it was Ripley's
and you said,
Believe It or Not.
You dumb bitch, you don't know anything. You don't know how hard I have to
this
fight.
This all's a sham anyway.
Space.
Let me talk about who hosted Ripley's Believe It or
Zach.
Not. Some nameless, attractive, black-haired white guy, right?
Whoa, what?
The thing I wanted to mention most, because I had a lovely Thanksgiving with both of our families. It was very nice. But we're deep into December. Who cares?
Yeah.
I wish I could spoil all of the exciting things I'm excited about for Lil that are, just as much for me as they are for them in some cases.
Yeah.
I'm excited for all that, to give presents to my partner. It's that kind of time. But I saw some movies over the time we were gone, and the one I wanted to mention is what I saw last night. Not really because of the movie, but because of how I saw the movie. I'm sure I brought up on here when Oppenheimer came out that I was really hoping to get to the one theater in the state that's showing it in 70 millimeter projected film on one of the largest IMAX screens in the world. I really wanted to see it that way. And I did see it on a huge IMAX screen, one of the largest IMAX screens in the state, but not that one, and not projected in film versus, digital, how all theaters are now. And we were gifted by a friend who had tickets and had to go and couldn't last second. We were gifted these incredible seats at a completely sold out, like packed 70 millimeter film presentation of Interstellar, another Christopher Nolan movie, which I had never seen. But I do think, even if I think Oppenheimer is a little bit of a better movie than Interstellar, Interstellar was the one to see in that format, because
all this huge.
It felt like you were on a ride. It really felt like you were on a ride. Cool. It hurt my eyes. Something that I think is really interesting that I picked up on, because our eyes are so accustomed to digital projection, which really seamlessly can go from one frame to the next. When it's on a reel of film, it's going up into the next frame, and it kind of like affects that gave me a headache and kind of made me a little like almost motion sick. And it took like half of the movie not to adjust to the big screen, to adjust to seeing something projected in film. And it was kind of interesting. I took for granted how, because on digital it's so seamless, but it's different in film, and I really thought that was cool.
Did you cry at Interstellar?
Yeah, but I don't know if I would have if it hadn't been how I was seeing the movie. It was so loud. It was so big. It was so crystal clear. I cried at the part when he took off for the first time, mixed with his daughter and him like on the plane, on the airship, on the airship, on the airship. And then I cried when I'll stop talking about it because Interstellar's whatever. You've seen Interstellar. I don't need to give my thoughts on Interstellar. The part later on when he gets like 20 years of footage of his family, that made me cry too. Yeah. But then the ending, which I didn't hate, did make me emotional, mainly because my biggest thing with every Christopher Nolan film, he knows how to make a movie. He's making the best kinds of movies on a craft side. He could let somebody else write because his stories, his concepts are great. Yeah. Because they make you think, they make you second guess yourself. His dialogue is not as good. And it was the same in Oppenheimer. But anyway, that was my experience. I had a really fun time seeing a movie that way. And because it hurt my eyes, I don't know that I could see it all the time. But if you ever see a theater, mine's at a museum in Indianapolis. If you ever see a theater that has the true IMAX and screens something in 70 millimeter film, it's worth experiencing. I'm sure you could find some in Chicago.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go watch the Minions movie in 70 millimeter IMAX.
Let's talk about The Good Place, the final season of The Good Place. We're talking about season 4, episode 1 of The Good Place. This is chapter 40, and this is episode 1 and episode 2. We can agree on this for the first time in the show.
It's
part
true.
1 and part 2 aired on different weeks for the first time in the show. We're talking about chapter 40, A Girl from Arizona, part 1.
Hey-o! Now, this is an episode that we've heard the name of lots of times because this is a team that we've seen before, right, Zach?
You're right, and we're getting to the point where, not in this episode because they both come back next week, but we're going to start hearing some of these names for the last time, obviously, because it's the last season, and maybe we'll take a look at what they've gone on to do since The Good Place ended. But today, it's familiar faces that will be coming back another time. This episode was directed by Drew Goddard, who directed the very first episode of The Good Place.
Goddard, the dog from Jimmy Neutron.
Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, of course.
Good for him.
He also directed the season 2 standout Dance Dance Resolution. This is his first episode since then, but he comes back next week to direct the second half, A Girl from Arizona, part 2. This episode, part 1, was written by a team, Andrew Law and Cassia Miller. We've heard both of these names before. Andrew Law started with writing What's My Motivation in season 1, Existential Crisis, which I'm pretty sure is season 2. I get kind of foggy on which Michael Freakout is
Existential Crisis
which season.
Should be season 2 because Michael's on their side.
He also did Don't Let the Good Life Pass You By, the Doug Forsythe episode from last season. And he co-writes again next week, A Girl from Arizona, part 2, also with Cassia Miller, who Cassia Miller wrote one other episode before this one, A Fractured Inheritance, and one more episode after this, next week's A Girl from Arizona, part 2, with Andrew Law. That's our
team. A lot of good
for the
episodes
week.
from this team.
Some all-stars. Drew Goddard, he directed the pilot and Dance Dance Resolution and the final season premiere. That's pretty stellar if you're only going to do 3. This episode originally aired. We're getting so close to our late-ish 20s brains to the current time. We're almost to COVID because this episode originally aired September 26, 2019.
Holy
our
shit.
last 6-ish months of normalcy. So on September 26, 2019, what was the number 1 movie? The number 1 movie, it kind of surprises me that this was the number 1 box office. Maybe it was kind of a slow week. This is a movie adaptation of a British television series.
Oh, okay.
And
so
they've made one
The Office,
more
the
since
movie.
this.
The IT Crowd, the movie?
No. You think that was number 1 at the American box office? This show was a phenomenon. I never watched it.
It's not Monty Python.
No. More modern.
Doctor
But
Who?
it takes place in the past.
Oh, Outlander?
No, the number 1 movie this week was Downton Abbey.
They made a movie?
They've made 2.
Oh shit, I didn't know.
Theatrical
I've never seen
films of Downton
a second
Abbey.
of Downton Abbey.
Yeah, see on the big screen how Dame Maggie Smith is looking these days. The number one movie was Downton Abbey, the first film based on the television series, which was a pretty big deal when it was on TV.
Yeah, Downton Abbey
I don't
was
know.
very
I think it's
popular.
about old people playing croquet and talking about how they used to fuck or something. I've never watched it. What do you think the first film of Downton Abbey, which made it to number one on the American box office this week? Rotten
The
Tomatoes,
moms were
the
out
critics,
in full forces.
the critical people. What do you think they're thinking of Downton Abbey, the movie, a film you didn't know existed 37 seconds ago?
62.
It is higher.
Wow. Are they sitting at a 68?
They're sitting at an 84.
Fuck.
Apparently, Downton Abbey, the movie, is good.
Yeah.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience, I'd like to paint a picture because we talk about the type of people that vote on Rotten Tomatoes. It might be older people. And I'm imagining people are watching this movie with familiarity of the show.
Absolutely. I doubt
I
someone's
didn't know
going
the
in
show.
blind.
I didn't even touch it because I'm not watching the show to watch the movie. And I was seeing a lot of movies here. What do you think the audience on Rotten Tomatoes think based off of the critics? 84%.
Maybe a 79?
You think it's lower?
Maybe a little.
No, it isn't.
It's higher.
It is higher than an 84%.
91.
Downton Abbey, the audience on Rotten Tomatoes, have given it a 94%.
Holy shit. That's crazy. That's tough.
But that's all the old folks, both the critics and the audience. What do you think Letterboxd is thinking about Downton Abbey, the movie? I've taken it to a percentage out of 100. Where are those
maybe 80?
everyday people sitting? It is lower than 80.
71.
It's a 68%. Which
Okay, that's
seems
more where I
fair.
expected it to be.
I feel like Letterboxd, there are more people who might be tuning into the movie that haven't necessarily
Just,
watched all of the show.
completionists.
Yes. The number one album this week, September 26, 2019. This is a very famous artist and a musician who has had many memorable guest appearances on Good Mythical Morning. Someone who has a song associated with Spider-Man.
Okay. Then that would be Post Malone?
Yes, the number one album this
And is
week
this
was
Hollywood
by Post
is
Malone.
Dead?
No, but you're very close. You're thinking of the right album. That's just not what it's
Hollywood
called.
is Bleeding?
It's called Hollywood's Bleeding by Post
Hollywood is
Malone.
bleeding, and I can't let go.
I
like
was going to
this
give you
album.
some singles if I had to, but I didn't even have to. The singles from this one were
I know this
Wow,
album very, very well.
Goodbyes, and Circles. I've never been
I'm no good at
huge
goodbyes. That's a good
on
one.
Post Malone's music, but I do like and appreciate him as a personality.
This album's pretty good. Post Malone is pretty talented. He just
Sure.
kind of can't pick a lane, but this album's good.
I do get that vibe, even
There's
not
a
engaging
standout
too
with
much.
Young
That
Thug
makes
on this
sense.
album. Goodbye
Okay.
is the song
Should
you
I listen to
mentioned.
this album?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you think people thought of the album? Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone was the number one album this week. We're going to start with Pitchfork. It's out of 10 to the 10th. What do you think they're thinking of Hollywood's Bleeding?
7.4.
It's lower.
6.6?
It's a little bit higher at a 6.8 out of 10 from Pitchfork. Okay, how about Rate Your Music, the Letterboxd of music, out of 10 to the 100th? Do you think they're higher or lower than a 6.8?
Probably 5.54.
It's a little lower. You're close.
5.3 even.
No, it's 5.24. Pretty much
Okay.
just over 50% from the
Sure.
Rate Your Music crowd, because I don't think everybody loves Post
Likes
Malone.
Post Malone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, now we know what day and year this episode was on when it came out. So we're going to move into our discussion of A Girl from Arizona, Part 1, starting with one of my favorite segments we do here every week. I'm sure one of your favorite segments. Not you, meaning Steven. I don't know how you feel about it. And frankly,
Hey, who knows?
doesn't bug me much.
Yeah.
I don't really care. I know
Doesn't
the
keep you up
people
at
like
night.
it, and that's what's important. And also what is very important is that we find out definitively this week. I shouldn't have said definitive. I shouldn't have said definitively this week because the title ends with
Yeah.
this week. It's a double of the
Yeah,
this week. So
kinda
I'm
fucked up there.
gonna
Try
take that
again.
over. Okay.
Let's get hold on, can we get a quick touch up?
Yeah.
Quick, there we go, a little powder.
Sergio, put the grapes down a second. I
Yeah.
need a powder. Couple kinds of powder, you know?
Yeah. there we
Sergio
go.
knows. Sergio knows.
Papa's heart's
Grapes
beating
have
now.
always been a code for cocaine.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's time to find out. Did Steven watch the episode this week?
This week. That's how I imagine that somebody sounds on
Downton
Downton
Abbey.
Yeah.
Dame Maggie Smith.
It's like a mix of R2-D2 and Dobby the house elf. That's what I'm kind of going for there.
We haven't talked about the content of this episode yet at all.
Mm-hmm.
For being an episode that they decided to air over 2 weeks, it feels like the first half of an episode, especially when it comes to the ending, where it just kind of ends when there should be more, right? So how do you feel about recapping everything that happens in just this first part in 20 seconds?
Honestly, I'm a little bit
Not
nervous
good.
I'm going to get everything because maybe not a lot happens, but a lot of shots in this episode and a lot of scenes. And I don't know how much of it I'm going to be able to cover. I'm going to try my best, Zach, but this could be bad. I'm just going to be really honest with you. This could be bad.
I think
Because this is an
that's
episode
fair.
that I like, and so when I was watching it, I was just enjoying it, and I gotta be like, oh fuck, let me rewind so I can make sure I get some trivia here, because I was just enjoying watching it so much, because I haven't watched the show, really. I mean, even not counting the selection, it's been a while. So I was really happy to be watching the show again, and I think
agree.
because of that, I might not have retained the beats as fluidly. We'll see. We'll go for it.
And this is kind of an episode that maybe bites off a little more than it can chew.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think maybe it doesn't have the time to adequately deliver everything that it tries to give us in just the first half of the episode. So I am a little worried for you. Let's see. Let's see where it goes.
Let's see.
20 seconds on the clock. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Go.
The experiment is in full swing as we get another member of the experiment. She's a boring old bitch-ass old lady who turns out to be a bitch-ass demon. And she punches people in the face, starts kicking ass. Then we meet Brett. He's a real douche. He's really self-conceited, misogynistic, and he makes Janet do everything. Janet's overworked. She's pissed. The accountant is in an obelisk. Too much.
There was no arc
I
to
spoke
what
as
you
if it was
said.
60 seconds that I had to
You
talk,
did.
Zach.
You did. There was no arc to the story you were telling. You got the entirety of the Linda storyline.
Yep.
However, I think that's one of the problems with this episode, that there's not even enough time in it to adequately deliver that storyline and make it really sing, because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And nobody would know that based off of your description, because that's the only plot line you covered, and it was very scrambled.
It's the only
I can
complete
tell
arc in the episode.
you're a little shaking off the rust. It's been a second since we've done this. I will not grade you
I don't
want to
be coddled.
I don't know. I think
I
that's
wouldn't hate being cuddled.
I think that's a D plus.
Yeah.
Just by how slow and sluggish and how stuck on one thing. I think you're shaking off the rust, almost like a C minus, but I'm not feeling kind today. I think that's a D plus.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Okay, shake it off. Let's do some trivia. I'll just give you my first question.
Shake it off.
My first question for you. What are the 2 favorite things Chidi's home is equipped with?
He has reading lights.
Yes. That's the second one.
And
it's related.
Ceiling fan?
No.
Book
floor
desk?
to ceiling bookshelves.
Floor to ceiling bookshelves. Okay,
Yes.
I'll take that. I gotcha. What is Chidi's number one dream?
To summon books like Thor's hammer,
You got it.
but it hurts. Ouch.
But it does hurt.
What is technically the pride of Phoenix, Arizona?
It is a statue of Alice Cooper. Do I need to say what it's made of? Because that's one of my
I'd like you
questions.
to.
It's made of cigarette butts. Made
I had that
entirely-
written down. I would have gotten that right. I wrote down life-size statue of Alice Cooper made from cigarette butts.
Who's a bigger skid mark than Val?
Maybe Sean's mom.
You got it.
Classic.
Classic Val.
What are the light elephant babies' secrets of the universe?
Shirley Temple killed JFK.
Yeah, that's a
And then
revelation.
the other one... I almost made this one a question.
And it's clear not having done so is not paying off. Think of a historical architecture anomaly.
Stonehenge was a sex thing.
Yes.
There we go. Nice. Okay, I have a little bit different kind of question for you, Zach.
Okay.
Please sing the official Bad Place song.
1877 cars for kids. 1877 cars for kids. I got more committed to it as I went on. I thought, what the fuck am I doing? You only live once. You only podcast about a girl from Arizona once.
Well,
Part 1.
Part 1. Nice job. Points to you.
Thank you. What is Michael's old Bad Place chant?
This one is one of mine. I'm trying to remember it without.
There's 3 parts to it, kind of, you know?
I'm going to say the wrong order.
That's fine.
Dead eyes, bad hearts, can't lose.
You got one word wrong. Don't look. Dead eyes, blank hearts, can't lose. You got the right order. You just missed one word. Dead eyes. It's a verb. I'm really giving you the assist today. I'm rooting for you, champ. What might someone in the bad place do to a heart? They might just straight up
break it.
Eat it. Dead eyes, eat hearts, can't lose.
Oh, yeah, eat hearts. There we go.
You doubted me, didn't you? You were like, that's not
I
it.
doubted
I'm going to look
myself.
down and see what
I
it
believed.
really was. No, you
What
didn't.
is the
You said,
opposite of
it is
Florida?
right. Norway.
You got it.
I'm doing well.
You're doing really well.
On the selection, we both got all of the questions right. Have I gotten all of yours right so far?
So far, yes, sir.
I'm continuing the streak.
Ooh.
Okay, my next question. All of the rest of my questions are about Simone. What is Simone's last name?
Pile.
Simone Pile?
Yeah.
You think of Simone Biles?
Yeah.
And you went Simone Pile?
I have no idea.
No, her name is, this might be someone's birthstone, I think. Her last name is Garnet.
Ah.
Is that a birthstone?
Yeah.
That sounds right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Simone Garnet. They might have mentioned it before, but I had never caught it before.
Yeah,
it was
it's new for
on
me.
the headshots on the emoji wall.
Never took note. How many days of mouth fleas does it take to convince someone they're dead?
Do they say definitively one number, or do they give two numbers?
They give two.
Okay, so 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, you got it. Keep the streak alive.
What is on Simone's head in her party attire? Did you watch the episode this week?
Yeah, I was paying more attention to her shirt. Was it like a set of little antenna?
No.
Or like BB
no,
antenna? Little
no.
buzzy bee?
Not close in any way.
Plunger?
Less
Dunce
close.
cap?
None of these are close.
Candelabra.
I guess that's closer, but not close.
What is it?
Cheese.
Cheesehead. Go Packers.
Yes.
What animal does Cheaty look like?
Ooh, this might be the one that gets me. What animal does Cheaty look like? I've been giving you some hints. Will you tell me who says
According to
this?
Jason.
He looks like an owl that went to college.
You got it.
I don't think that breaks the streak, because I have been assisting
you still got
this
him.
time.
Yeah, you good.
It was the way you asked it.
Sergio's
that
giving
didn't
me a
make
big
think of
thumbs
that
up.
joke. Sergio, that's not his thumb.
Oh, God. Get that
that's
checked.
always up. That was in his contract. My last, final question for you. What part of Simone's brain is rapidly decaying? She says this
Frontal
at the end of
lobe?
the episode.
Prefrontal cortex?
You were closer the first time. You got the second word right. Lobe. Temporal lobe.
Temporal lobe.
Not tempura. You kind of put a little temporal.
Temporal.
Yes, temporal.
Temporal lobe, yes.
Temporal, yeah.
Yeah, temporal.
Temporal.
What's in Derek's glass at the party?
An onion.
Can you give me any more details about it?
A whole a whole white onion that's not been peeled or anything.
There's something about the onion.
And then he stabs it with a toothpick and it has olives on it.
Yeah. What will the judge make Sean watch?
Videos of soldier and dog reunions.
With
no
this
eyelids.
last one, you'll either know this one or you won't.
For all the marbles.
What is the name of the train at the end of the episode?
The Bad Place Express.
You fucking got it, Zach! Absolutely! That was a total guess. That was great.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, the easiest thing they could name it. Hell yeah.
Good job, Zach. That was
Queen
perfect. And I had a lot of questions.
Sweep.
That was good.
Okay, that was very nice.
Good job.
We've done the trivia. We've done the recap. Let's talk about what we thought of the episode. You tell me, how did it feel to revisit the episode? You said you were excited to watch it again. You remembered it fondly.
Yeah,
what was it like?
I enjoyed it. I think after the season ended so strongly, you're ready to see kind of the aftermath of Cheaty getting reset. And while I don't love everything that Eleanor necessarily does, or all of her behavior, I get it. And I think that they were smart to not go too into how Eleanor is doing yet this week.
Yeah.
Because it's a two-parter. But I do think that things are going the right direction. I think that they just maybe tried to fit too much into this first half of the episode. And I get it. It's the last season. You only have so much time.
Yeah.
But
13 more episodes, or I guess 14 because the last episode is technically a double episode that was aired at once. Yeah. Like 14 production episodes to end this universe spanning show. You got to get right into it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like part 1 is always tough for me of things because they introduce a lot of ideas and they don't finish their arc yet, but I guess they shouldn't. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of a part 1. Zach, what do you think?
I know, it is a little tough. It's hard to, because I do have things that I'll mention throughout the episode that work better than others. I do think it's a little overstuffed. I don't think it builds off the momentum of the season 3 finale enough. Like, it kind of just keeps going along the way you would think it would without any huge surprises. And then the hugest surprise, they don't have time to really let you think about it happening until it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then going back and rewatching the episode, it's funny knowing the twist that Linda's a demon the whole time and that she's that demon, because the first thing she says is, "Are there any fitness centers?"
Is there a fitness center? Yeah.
Which is really pretty funny. But watching it through as its own episode, removed from part 2, which is true this time because they were on separate weeks, it is hard to rate it as its own episode. I think I'd rate it a little lower. But that might be totally useless once I see part 2 and I'm blown away by it. And then as a whole, it works a lot more. I think this is a fine episode. I don't think it's the best season premiere of The Good Place. And I don't think it's the worst season premiere of The Good Place. I think we had some problems with last season's premiere. I think it's a good episode. I do like that, unlike other season premieres, we don't have to do the whole, a moment with each character starting over again, that we're kind of thrown back into the group dynamics. I like that about it. I do appreciate that about it. While also having plenty of throwbacks to season 1 Good Place. Seeing these new people wake up, seeing them go through Flying Day. It does take you back to the beginning as we're preparing for the end. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
The episode started with a pretty long previously on. There was a lot to throw at us, and just like one line that's kind of out of context even for a previously on. They're really trying to get us to remember a lot of things because they're dropping us pretty much right in. It's a really great shot of Eleanor. I think Kristen Bell is excellent in this episode.
I agree.
Whether, like you said, everything Eleanor does is the best or not, I think Kristen Bell's excellent. There are a few jokey moments that are some of my favorite from her in a while. Some of that is because we haven't been watching the show in a while. Last time was the selection, and we didn't get to see William Jackson Harper or Jamila Jamil or Manny Jacinto or Ted Danson. So I don't know, I really savored like their deliveries and how pro all these people are. And as we get into the final season, how well they and the writers and everybody know these characters to really let them sing as they're getting to the beginning of the end. I think Kristen Bell's great. She's trying to keep calm as Chidi is seeing The Good Place for the first time, exclaiming that it's so great, it's so perfect, it's everything he could ever want it to be, directly to the face of the person who's like, well, yeah, everything's the way you want it to be, but you should want me. Not everything's the way you want it to be.
Exactly.
So Eleanor just, we're going to keep it moving. She shows him his new house and how it's equipped with his favorite things. And it's a nice looking house. We've never seen Chidi have his own home on the show before.
And you know, I was thinking, I remember when I watched this the first time, watching it now, I was like, have we ever seen this space? And then I remembered, this looks it's not the same, but it looks very similar to the space in Tahani's house that Janet was giving therapy to Tahani and Jason. It looks very similar, but I don't think it's the same. I don't have this photographic
of a memory. I'd have to go back and look to compare it. That's interesting.
It might be the same structural set that they just added the books and things to, but it looks very similar.
And to my recollection, the only time we've seen Chidi at a living space, it was like him out a window. Do you remember this? Was there a time when he's speaking out of a window? But anyway, we see his place.
Flashbacks.
It's his place for the first time. It's got a really nice bookshelf. It's kind of a dream. I would love to have a bookshelf like that, but it's all TV shows.
Mine would all be manga.
It looks really cool. He's excited about it. He's super excited about the reading lights, which really just like lamps.
Yeah,
but that's his favorite. You know, he just says they're great for reading. But the biggest, most Good Place exciting thing, they don't have anyone say this, but it's so clearly a touch that Eleanor came up with because she knew Chidi would love this. Hold out your hand, think about a book, and boom, it comes off the shelf, and to him, in a really cool effect, he can summon a book like Thor's hammer. He's really excited about it. It's his dream, but it did hurt. It hurt more than he thought it would, and ouch, it was a hardcover book. Really fast into his hand, that would hurt.
Yeah, I love that. And Chidi's whole apartment, you can tell Eleanor just probably put more time into that than anything else in the neighborhood.
She wants to make it the real good place for Chidi because she wants him to be happy, intended to. Yes. So Eleanor needs to get away from this. It's really heavy for her. She says she has a lot to attend to. She gives Chidi a last welcome to the good place. You're here. I'm glad you're here. And this is sad. Chidi's so overwhelmed. He's like, oh, I forgot your name. And Eleanor has to, no, that's okay. No sweat. It's Eleanor. And Chidi does the classic. We all do this. Oh, Eleanor. Okay, I know your name. I remember it.
Now.
He says, now I won't ever forget it.
Yeah.
She says, well, you might, and leaves the room. And it has a real twinge of sadness. They do a really good job. You feel the pathos. You feel the chemistry with a huge wall up between the two of them and just the couple of moments that they get to spend together. She gives her awkward laugh, she leaves, and then she meets the rest of the crew in the office, and they just all look so sorry for her.
Yeah.
Eleanor, and I get this, she just, can we not? I don't want to make this a whole thing, but Tahani pulls her in immediately for a hug. She's not going to let go. And then Jason jumps in on the hug action too. And he's like, I like the hug. Sweet. It feels good and my hands are cold.
Guys, I'm good. Honestly. Wasn't even as bad as I thought. I mean, who cares if he doesn't remember my name?
Oof. I mean, cool.
Good save, bud.
Thought that was funny.
I think Kristen and Ted both have really good episodes. Eleanor just wants to concentrate on the task at hand and the next resident who is set to arrive in 6 minutes. But Michael has something to say before they get started on this next phase. He knows that rightfully they all feel doomed, and they know that if they fail, the whole world fails, that humanity can be doomed. And Eleanor, I think, is the one that says, you needed to say that. You needed to gather us all to say that. But he's so certain. He believes in the team. He believes that they can handle anything that the bad place is going to throw at them because they are an incredible team. But then it's interrupted. I really like the back and forth here of nice demon Michael giving his version of a pep talk, slam cut to evil Sean giving his degrading version of a pep talk to his team. This worked for me. Did it for you? No,
I
it
think
didn't.
it just went on a little too long. I don't know why. I remember watching this and I was like, I don't need this scene to be quite this long because I think that
that might be true.
I think it was just too long for me. Like maybe it was because I was just excited to be back into it, get into the flow of things. But I don't know. I like the juxtaposition of Michael to Sean. I'm fine with that. But then I didn't need to keep going back because I didn't really care about what Michael was saying because it was kind of just like, I don't know. It didn't feel necessary for me, but I do like the joke of going from Michael to Sean because I think that is very funny. And especially just watching the selections, the last thing we saw, I think it was fun to see the demon, like this group of demons at the table. And I like the, Val, your mom joke. I thought was funny.
What I just did in my head while you were going on about that, I think I rewrote the scene to make it a little bit better. Okay? It should just be one slam cut from one to the other.
Yes.
Get all of Michael's pep talk out. And then at the end, when he says, it's funny when he goes, and Jason, you're... What I think's funnier, if he goes, and Jason, you're cut to Sean an unbelievable dingus Baba John. Yeah. And then going on his scene from there. And
because I think
maybe
that's
funnier.
Because I didn't love the and Jason. I didn't love that because I think at this point Michael would have something nice to say about Jason. But
absolutely, I agree.
That was my. I think maybe that's what.
Maybe you could have one more cut back to Michael, but it shouldn't have been 3. Like,
yeah.
What are my notes? I want to see how many times they do it. They're interrupted by Sean, his bad place version, and I thought, yeah, it's cool to see the selection, but at least one of them isn't there, right?
They have a little bit different
the other
group.
Girl.
Yeah,
there's a couple other people, and then Glenn shows up at the end.
The girl that I gave my bad.
I forget her
place
name
to.
already in that whole podcast. I was like, now I remember their name. Val and the other one.
It was Gail.
Gail, yes. Justice for Gail. I did not see Gail. Sean saying stuff like, I'm so proud of how disgusting and cruel you are. You suck. I like this. Then he says kind of tearfully after you suck, you all suck donkey butts. There's the thing where Michael says Tahani is the one that talked me out of a goatee. And Tahani says, yeah, I couldn't do it for Robert Downey Jr., but I'm glad I could do it for you. Cut to Bombajon, unbelievable dingus. Val, huge skid mark, just like your mom, classic. Cut to Janet. Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 cuts. Cut to Janet can do literally
it's
anything.
just too many.
She made all of the people here, not people. And then he hypes himself up. I like when Michael hypes himself up. He's like, and me, even though I had my thing a little while ago. But that was a while ago. Most of you probably don't even remember it, probably. And we have Jason, who can... I think it's okay that Michael hesitates, but I think he could have followed up with something nice about Jason for sure. You're right. And the fearless leader, the pride of Phoenix, Eleanor. Eleanor says, well, no, the Pride of Phoenix is technically an Alice Cooper thing made out of cigarette butts. The thing I thought, I don't think, based off of part 1, this episode needs to be called A Girl from Arizona.
No.
This is like the only moment.
Yeah.
I think it could have been something like New Beginning Neighborhood. I'm not going to give it a title, but I don't think it needed. The emphasis is like tertiarily on Eleanor. I'm thinking maybe the next half of it has a lot of flashbacks. I feel like I remember stuff in Arizona, maybe. I don't remember.
Or I think it's just that if I remember correctly, it just has
around
more to
her
do with
stepping up.
Eleanor. Yeah, kind of getting a hold of things. And because they really sow the seed for next week at the very end of this episode, but we'll get to that later.
The one slam cut that works the best, I think, is when Michael says something like, there's no problem we can't solve. Cut to the bad place. There's no problem we can't create. I think that kind of works. It says, now, guys, let's all rally out in our favorite song as I performed. I think pretty well. You know, people are tweeting that I did a good job.
The streets
at
are talking.
1877 Cars for Kids. Glenn, I was thinking this whole time, where's Glenn? They got to have Glenn. He pops his head in. Ooh, are we singing? Shut up, Glenn. A very selection moment.
Yeah.
That's where we get the theme song bit. After that, Michael is complimenting Eleanor in the office because she's wearing a suit and she looks very leaderly. She looks
To
very
quote
much.
Kelly Kapoor, played by Mindy Kaling, I'm the business bitch.
She says, I feel
That's how I feel whenever I
authoritative
see-
like that chick from Law and Order. I thought Eleanor's impression was one of my favorite Kristen Bell
was really
deliveries.
funny.
The way that she opens up her jacket a little, puts like one hand forward, assumes the position, makes a face, and says, well, boys, looks like we got ourselves an SVU. I've never watched the show. I thought that was so funny.
That was very funny.
She nailed it. Kristen nailed that moment. The mail tube comes in and it's time. We're going to meet our next human. We can talk about how Linda is a demon from the bad place because we've talked about it already. I think it makes it more fun to talk about the Linda moments, knowing that already.
Absolutely.
So Linda Johansson shows up. She learns by the comforting voice of Michael and Eleanor, you are in the good place. And all she has to say is, that's nice. Very Shirley Bennett of her.
Yeah. Nice.
Her one question, which I thought was great because, you know, the twist is there a fitness center? I did not notice it
Which
the
is
first
funny.
time for getting the twist at the end, even though I might have thought like, why is that the first question? I forgot the demon twist because it kind of, I think, falls flat a little bit, the demon twist. Even though storyline, it makes sense. I think the way it delivers kind of falls flat. So I had totally forgotten.
And I had forgotten because we had been talking about, like, do we remember who the other person was? And I was like, oh, it's Chidi, but I forgot how we got there. And so as soon as I saw her, I remembered, oh, yeah, it's a demon. But I remember the first time watching, I don't think I knew.
My thought was just kind of, oh, yeah, we didn't remember the last one because she's a boring old lady. I didn't remember the demon thing at all. But I still wasn't, I don't know. I'm shocked by the punching moment. Like, oh, my God. But then after that, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Michael, I think, has one of his first great Ted Danson deliveries of the season when he's talking about this is paradise. He like hits the very like softly and he's like really using his voice. Like, this is paradise. So you could have literally anything you'd like. And Linda just says, that's nice. I like that. So they show her around the neighborhood and Michael and Eleanor are a few paces behind kind of chatting like, what's going on? What is this? All the other humans are here kind of obviously to specifically torment someone else. Why is she here? Is she here to torture Jason? Is Norway the opposite of Florida? Do you think that tracks?
I think so.
Lil's
Norway's cold
biological
and polite.
father lives in Norway.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems really nice. So it probably is the opposite of Florida. They say that Linda is so boring that she makes neutral Janet look like disco Janet.
Which is a great foreshadowing.
That's true. And I also like how it just paints the picture of there being variations of Janet kind of similar to like a Barbie. That there's disco Janet, there's rollerblading Janet, there's go-go dancer Janet. This one's disco Janet. She was a lot, but she was
fun.
Eleanor wants to get rid of Linda. She's dead weight. They've got other things to worry about. So she introduces Linda to Janet. You know, Janet, you can ask her for anything. Here, Janet, make a baby elephant made of pure light that tells you true secrets about the universe. I think this bit would have been funny if the secrets were funnier.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they just didn't hit me. But that's subjective. Someone else might think that's funny. The baby, it's more funny Eleanor saying, hey, make this thing than actually seeing it created in this moment. But all that Linda wants isn't something creative. She just wants a peppermint, and she'll want them many times. So she takes a peppermint. Oh, thank you. I'm going to step away now. And after she steps away, we learn that Stonehenge was a weird sex thing, which honestly, probably. We did learn once that all new human activities are typically sex things.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to the last human waking up. It's Brent. Obviously, we've been talking a lot, I think, remembering that we hate Brent and that he was a really annoying character. Obviously, I hate the character, but I found him really funny so far in this episode.
He does a really good job, yeah.
So you, Brent Norwalk, are dead.
Really? Well, that blows. You know what? Maybe it's a good thing, actually. Some journalist was poking around calling all these ladies who used to work for me. You can't even make a joke these days. Everything is so PC. And I was an equal opportunity offender, okay? I made jokes about everybody. And by the way, I'm the furthest thing from racist. My dentist was a black woman. I just think people need to loosen up.
I think Brett's character is really funny because, I don't know, especially where we're from, like there are people that are very much like Brett. And so it's funny seeing
to see a show
this is
so clearly.
This is like one of the worst people that the bad place could find. Yeah.
Do you think there are people watching this show out there that are like, I like this guy.
Like,
this
guy seems like a stand-up guy.
But nothing's more telling than when it gets quiet after he stops talking and he's like, so where am I exactly? The good place. No, cool, good. Then they show him around, and we learn a little bit about him, mainly that he was in the materials industry. He lists off a gargantuan list of things that he worked on, and Eleanor, a woman, tries to pipe in and say, oh, so you steal, right? No, not steal.
Not steal.
Steal's a sucker's game. But you crack open an HVAC, and that is all us.
As he, like,
does a golf
pretends to be
motion,
golfing.
and then asks, is there golf here? Because there freaking better be.
I golfed, Zach, for the second time in my life.
Did you do better? Worse?
Yes, I tied for first place with my friends that golf on two friends this time, and they golf quite often, and I tied the person that was in first of the three of us.
Did you again
shot a 105.
Frustrate how you question their masculinity by being good at the thing they do all the time?
I think they were both a little surprised and shocked, but my thing, I can just hit it straight.
Tears.
They hit it much further, but I just hit it straight every time.
Never had much luck with hitting it straight. I tried. Boy,
you
did
tried.
I try.
Boy, did you attempt.
Boy, did I try. Eleanor just says, I'm going to go away, far away. But if you need anything, you can call Janet. Janet pops up. Oh, a secretary. Not a secretary. And he goes on another tirade of like, oh, all these terms we've got to learn, right? Vice president of helping. And then he says, this is like the most timely joke in the episode. It's like Captain Marvel, right? Talking about all the titles. Because this would have been around the time that the internet was so mad about Captain Marvel for some reason.
Well, and I kind of forget that this aired not that long ago. Because I was like, oh shit, Captain Marvel was out already?
Well, 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, and people are still complaining about that with the like third or fourth thing to have Captain Marvel in it.
Yeah.
So stupid. But there is a large enough group of people that we have to comment on it. Like there is, even though it's such a stupid thing to be so upset about, there are enough people that are upset and making a big deal about it that it's inescapable.
Brie Larson stands in this house, regardless of my thoughts on the film Captain Marvel.
Rachel, the coat check girl for life.
Scott Pilgrim.
In the Community movie, I would love it if Abed and Rachel are together.
That would make me very happy.
I'd be fine with that. I'm sure Brie Larson would come show up for that. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Captain Marvel.
Academy
you know
Award winner Brie Larson.
When he says something, the Captain Marvel thing, he looks to Michael and Michael says, oh, I'm not part of this. Eleanor thinks that Linda has to be for Jason because Brent is clearly there for her, just driving her up a wall. And then we cut to another thing. Inside Mindy's house, Michael is reintroducing the gang to Matt from accounting. He was the weird sex thing guy, right?
He was the weird sex thing guy, yeah.
He didn't kill himself, and he got a new job. Good for Matt.
I hope that Michael remembered him and was like, hey, can we get Matt in on this?
I think he needs something. He needs this. The judge has assigned him, actually. I think this is the judge's doing. At least that's what I wrote in my notes. That the judge has assigned him.
The judge did assign. Maybe Michael asked. He put in a good word.
That's
my headcanon. In my fan fiction where Michael and Matt plow,
that
Michael's
guy's got it rough.
asked.
Let's get him in here. Yeah, there should be a fan fiction that takes place during season 4.
Inside the obelisk?
Inside the obelisk and the glimpses that he has with Michael until they finally get to bone. Yeah. That's what I think about when I watch The Good Place.
Something always leads me back to you.
And something always leads us back to talking about Community, huh? So Matt is from accounting. The judge assigned him to monitor the new humans, and they've got this new modified point system to see over time how much better or worse they become during this year. But none of the people outside of the obelisk are going to be able to monitor this, so they won't exactly know what's going on, but there will be someone there who's always actively monitoring and keeping things on the up and up. Tahani has like a face that she makes when Matt goes over and gets in the obelisk where she's like, and that really made me laugh. He wishes them all luck and he steps back into the obelisk, which just like lights up and closes, and then it's just there for the rest of the time. Eleanor steps up as leader, but in an Eleanor way, because they've got to figure out what's up with these new humans. And she's made this board where all it is 2 columns. One that's the L on chin emoji. What's these guys' deal to party hat blowing the noisemaker emoji over here. We got their headshots. And when we figure them out, we'll put them over here. It's like her take on trying to do what Chidi does, but she can't like write a bunch of ideas on a board. She just has a visualizer of an easy concept. I really like another great Kristen Bell moment is when she's doing that and making the emoji face for each one to explain it. Her really take on the hand behind her head for the party hat and the finger for the noisemaker is really funny. I really like that. We're going to try to get them from what's their deal to party time. She assumes because they know Simone that they've got her figured out. We know her deal. We're putting her over to party time. And Michael says that they'll focus on the others. He comes together to call a team rally cry, but it's the old bad place one. Do you remember what it was? 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later.
Dead eyes, eat hearts,
you
can't lose.
You can't talk me out of that one. You look down.
I looked straight forward. My phone is over here. As you see, I'll reach my hand directly down to grab it, Zach, not in the line that I was looking. It's here.
Another one of the mini threads this episode is Jason. Jason approaches Derek, who is looking out to the people in the distance and going, "Aw, aw, aw." If you don't like Derek, some of this stuff is going to be annoying this week, but it was kind of one of my favorite funny parts of the episode, everything he did. Jason approaches Derek as he's appreciating the beauty of his creation. Aw, no. And Jason calls Janet to fix this because Derek is walking around. He's supposed to be at Mindy's. It's going to start causing questions from the humans that they're trying to convince this is the good place. But he can't go. He's too proud of Daddy Derek. And Jason puts him in his place.
She made him, dude. He barely did anything. Probably just, made all the butts.
I did make all the butts. I made that butt. I made that butt.
Right.
I made both those butts.
Derek.
And Janet chastises Derek, tells him, you have to stay at Mindy's because the humans will see you. They'll ask questions. There's this weirdo in a tux. That's not good. You've got to go away. But before he leaves, he asks for a hug, and it's just got so much the where my hug at vibe. Yeah. So, but first, this was really hard. Could I get a hug?
Can I get a hug?
And then the girl he has a crush on hugs him, and he looks at the guy that definitely has a crush on her, and
oh, that feels so Derek.
I'd love Jason versus Derek. I really do like it because Jason's so simple and Derek is so broken simple that it's really fun to watch them at odds with each other. We'll come back to that in a little bit because now the neighborhood is watching Michael's welcome video to kick off their stay in the good place. And I had the thought, if Michael is supposed to be the assistant, shouldn't the welcome video have been Eleanor?
Well, they had already had it all made up before Michael...
But this
fucked
is
up.
for all the human marbles. You don't think they would really think this through and just go film a new video real quick?
They haven't had time.
Or do you
Eleanor's
think
been
the
going
people
person to
behind The
person.
Good Place were not trying to film a video real quick?
Bingo.
The
Well, and
neighborhood's
Janet's
watching
busy.
the video. And the point Michael tells Eleanor of the video is to make them confront who they were on Earth when they're hearing you're here because you matter, it's the good place. And keep a close eye on the humans because if they flinch, if they have any gives. And Eleanor says, okay, but what if they're shaking someone by the head? What does that mean? Cue the Simone section of the episode, which I think is another one of the better turns of the episode. It's
Agreed.
a totally different shade of Simone that works really well for what we know her character to be.
Yeah.
And that works really well for me as an angle of what might be someone's reaction when they die and have to come to terms with the afterlife. This is one of those scenarios. Simone, our fave, we cue to her. She's shaking someone by the head. And she's like, oh, well, I'm okay. Well, you know, I'm not really okay, but it's okay because nothing here is real. This is all in my head, a hallucination. She's talking about her brain. It's shutting down. You know, this is what she's seeing as her brain shuts down. So she'll just, you know, have fun with it here and get weird with it, with what her brain's creating until she dies or wakes up, is what she says. See you later, figments of my imagination. And she walks away. Another funny little bit that we get a follow-up on later is just how much stuff is piling on Janet because of how much she's in charge of this scenario. Eleanor is trying to explain why Simone went off and says, oh, she's just going to go get some popcorn. From the popcorn river.
The popcorn
Janet,
river.
go make a popcorn river. Everyone else, meet at Mindy's. So Eleanor cut to her ripping Simone's face out of the party time side, putting it back on what's their deal. And Janet speaks up a little bit. She says that this is all really hard for her because if she loses concentration for even as much as a billionth of a second, the entire universe will collapse in on itself. A whole interstellar situation might happen. Might end up in this weird bookshelf cube thing, talking to your daughter through sand. Dust.
Been there.
This is hard for Janet. It's really wearing down on her. She's got all that, and she has to constantly do whatever Brent wants her to do, which is currently to get a BLT.
Tough.
Michael says that Simone's reaction is actually pretty common, kind of like what I was thinking. It makes sense that a character would react this way. That Simone's reaction is common, and it would happen a lot in The Bad Place. They ask him, well, when would they figure it out? He says, well, usually by the third or fourth day of torture, they'll break that facade because
Good old mouth fleas.
They're seeing this doesn't end. But in this place, where it's just kind of a silly, comforting, whatever you want to happen can happen, you could get stuck in that headspace of, it is what I make of it, this isn't real.
Now, do you think that mouth fleas mean that the things in your mouth are made of fleas, or that you have a mouth full of fleas?
Ooh.
Because both
Say the
would
first
be
one.
bad.
Say the first one again.
The first one, like your teeth and tongue are made of fleas. Or that you just have a mouth full of fleas. I think the first one might be scarier.
Yeah, but I do think it might be the second one. But it's like you can't get rid of them. Like it's more like they're filled all of you coming out of your throat and full in your mouth.
Yeah.
That's the way I think of it.
Have you seen The Mummy? It's kind of the Mummy.
I saw
with
it
the
recently for the first
flesh-eating
time.
beetles. Love The Mummy. Was deathly afraid of flesh-eating beetles. Thought it would be a bigger problem for me in my life.
I would have liked it more if I had seen it when I was younger. The effects don't hold up. And
Love the ride.
It's not.
Love
the
the
ride.
ride.
Is great. The ride is great.
Love getting to ride the ride multiple times in a row because it would kind of break.
Yeah. No, that was the Hagrid one, I thought, right?
Well, we did
we do
both,
that on the
both.
Mummy too. Interesting. Interesting.
Everything kept stopping when we were there.
If Simone thinks that this place is fake, that's going to mean she has no chance of getting better because she has no need to get better. She isn't convinced to do that. So they need someone authoritative and reassuring to get her in the right spirits. Tahani mentions anyone that she played racquetball with, whether that be Nelson Mandela, Patrick Stewart. Jason chimes in with an idea, and again is shot down in this episode. Like, no, not Blake Bortles. That's stupid. Don't say anything. But his idea is a good one and the obvious one, Chidi.
Yeah.
Chidi's a good guy. He's convinced us all to be better people. If anyone can do it, it's Chidi. He looks like one of those owls that graduated college. Michael says, yeah, of course, that makes sense. But Eleanor, this is kind of when we get into Eleanor not being the best. She's really against this, and she holds back from it as long as she can, because it's really going to hurt to see the two of them bond when she could have kept them apart from each other.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the back of her head this whole time, well, sure, Chidi will forget me, but at least I can keep him away from Simone so they can't connect in that way. But now they have to.
Yeah, I get it. It's just frustrating. So I'm like, Eleanor, you know what you have to do. It's not good behavior, but I understand it. Because, I mean, how would you feel if, let's just say, for example, you're running a mystical neighborhood and your partner gets stuck there with their ex vis-a-vis me and my charming wiles.
Sounds like a harem anime.
Sounds
just
like
waiting
a
to burgeon out of that.
100 significant others that really, 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 really love him.
If I had 100 significant others, I wouldn't do any weird sex stuff. I would just live out the game show 1 versus 100 for the rest of my life.
The constant trivia.
Eleanor says that Simone is just being silly. You know, get her to the welcome party, she'll calm down, she'll snap out of it, she'll be fine. Direct cut to the welcome party and Simone not being fine. She's in, you said you noticed the t-shirt more. What did her t-shirt say?
I don't fucking
You
remember.
don't remember. She's wearing a t-shirt, she's got foam fingers on, she's got the cheese head. She's not okay. She's just continuing to get weird with it, yelling, look what my brain did. It's not real and neither are you. I'm in a coma. And she walks off.
I think it's really creative they had somebody react like this, because none of the 4 did. They just accepted that they were dead and they were in heaven, or the good place. But Simone's like, well, not a fucking chance. Is any of that real?
And I think it's even better that it's a character we got to know outside of this before.
Yeah, who's so professional,
rather than
so
just
put
a new
together.
character who's like crazy like this. I think it works knowing the other side of Simone, and
because we know how smart Simone is, but because she's actually smart, she's like, well, this doesn't make sense mathematically.
Yeah.
Like your brain does shit like this.
It works really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Eleanor knows that they need a new approach, and she's willing to mention that, but she's still hesitant about letting Chidi in on this, and she can't deny that Simone is rocking the foam fingies.
Mm-hmm.
We get another confrontation when Jason is standing around as Jianyu at the party, and Derek pops in shaking a martini. I love that he's saying, Rudy toot toot, Rudy tooty tooty, root toot toot. And Jason says, what are you doing here? You need to be at Mindy's. And Derek says, I'm just here to mix myself a Derek, and then I'll be on my way. He has a whole white onion in his glass. Then he stabs the toothpick into it with olives on it. And Jason is trying to be mature, and he comes off very mature when compared to someone like Derek going Rudy tooty tooty as he makes a drink out of a white onion. Jason tries to call a truce. He says, you're trying to get under my skin, and it's okay, but I've tried to rise above it. I love Derek. Well spoken, Mr. Mendoza. This is my favorite Derek thing of the episode. Let me say in response, I will destroy you. I thought that was so funny.
Well spoken, Mr. Mendoza. Let me say in response, I will destroy you. Janet is, and always will be, my mommy girlfriend. You have crossed the Rubicon now, pal.
And then he takes a bite out of his glass and chews on the broken glass.
Very funny.
That might be my biggest laugh of the whole episode. Is just wow, well spoken, Mr. I will destroy you. That's me whenever we get together a couple times a year and I have a nice little friend hug with Danny and I get close to her ear and say, I will destroy you.
As you should. Got to keep her on her toes.
The gang regroups and they're talking about what they've learned about Linda, which is pretty much nothing. Tahani tried to talk to her. Tahani talks about Xanax a lot sometimes. This is not the first time Tahani said Xanax. She said that talking to Linda was duller than a split Xanax with Peter Skarsgård. I don't know enough about Peter Skarsgård. Is he boring?
He's the guy from now wait, which one? Because there's Peter Skarsgård, I think, is the dad, and Alexander Skarsgård is the muscly son. I think
they said Peter.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to remember which one was Peter. I think it's the dad.
I thought Peter was maybe one of the brothers. Peter is a dad.
Oh,
there's
maybe. Because there's a Skarsgård that plays an old man in the movie
Skarsgård.
Nymphomaniac, Volume 1. Actual film, not a porno, I promise.
Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah! You see some Shia Schlong in Nymphomaniac.
You see a lot of cock in Saltburn. I haven't talked about it on the podcast, but I saw this movie Saltburn. I didn't love it, but it has some of the most disturbing imagery I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see something that'll make you squirm and not be sure how you feel about it, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Eleanor's glad that Linda's boring because Brent is enough to have to take care of. Cut to at the party, of course, Brent is talking about how well he did at Princeton. I was at the top half of the bottom half of my class.
That's
at
really
Princeton.
funny.
Then he says, yeah, rowing team, sailing team, class president. I hung out with all those guys.
It's very
Brent
funny.
Is played by Joe Mandy, Good Place writer that we've talked about a lot. And he's a stand-up comedian, and you can tell. I think he has great delivery and just makes a meal out of playing this detestable guy. I hung out with all those guys.
A thread that I kept following when watching this was like remembering that these are all people that Janet made that are probably not like fully fleshed out individuals.
That's
so they
so
just
funny.
kind of like stand there and nod no matter
Complete
who's talking
NPCs.
to them. And so seeing all of the test subjects interact with people is very funny to me.
Yeah, like here when we cut to John and he's talking about the work he had done on himself right before he died and how he hopes his corpse looks good. And then he says, my ex-boyf is going to be Soup's gel. And nobody really says anything. And he says, all right, I'm going to do a lap and see who gets me.
Yeah,
and nobody
which is
really gets
so
him
good.
because it's just a bunch of nobody people.
It's very
Michael
funny.
says that the biggest liability here is Simone, and they have to deal with it, and they have to keep the other humans away from her. And he tells Eleanor, look, I know it's hard. I know you don't want to do this, but we've got to introduce her to Chidi. Eleanor just can't let this happen. She thinks that, Simone's great. She's going to be okay. She just needs some time. She's getting all of the cake pushing out of her system as we see her pushing a cake off the table, not being fine. Michael knows and says it's painful to think of the two of them connecting, but Chidi made his sacrifice to help people, and that'll have been for nothing if he isn't here to help Simone now. And Eleanor, can't argue with that. That's it. That's the rub.
Yeah.
What, you're making a face?
No, it was a smile. It's called a smile, Zach. You haven't
I've never
one
seen you do
before.
it before. Yeah, so I was like, what are you is it part of your mouth falling off? All right, fine. Stupid, responsible, reasonable, ethical argument. Wish you were a cake. I'd push you over. Are you still muttering at me? No, I stopped. Stupid, good hearing,
good
reform
hearing.
demon.
Yeah.
Outside, Simone walks up to two people, says, whoa, and then shoves them into a pool. Eleanor steps over, shoving people into pools, huh? Yeah, I'm testing the physics in my nonsense brain jail. This is where Eleanor has to be the one to introduce Simone to Chidi, who may be able to help her because he is also a moral philosophy professor. He knows these things. But Simone is able to keep down her thread of this being a makeup of her brain. She quickly learns that Chidi worked at the school that she worked at, so she must have seen his name and picture somewhere, and now her brain is regurgitating it as information as she dies. Makes a lot of sense. She says, the human brain is amazing. I want something else to get me through this semi-charm kind of life. I think that's one of the actors who plays Simone's funniest moments, her off-key
really
singing
good.
semi-charm kind of life.
The human mind is truly incredible. I want something else to get me through this semi-charmed kind of life, baby.
Sorry, what's happening now?
When I was a kid, my CD alarm clock broke, and it used to wake me up to that song every day. So now I'm singing it to try and wake myself up.
Okay.
And Chidi just kind of shuffles off awkwardly. He doesn't really have anything to add to this. And Simone says, nice to meet you, cute guy generated by my rapidly decaying temporal lobe. More of the song. Do, 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 do. Thoughts on Third Eye Blind? Bad thoughts, right?
Yeah, that song is catchy enough.
They have I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. They have a couple others too. I think there's not
but I'm
so
not jumping
well-kept
to listen to Third Eye Blind.
Hollywood secret that the guy from Third Eye Blind is like a fucking asshole to everybody. Like when he goes to shows, he's mean to all the people that work at the venues and stuff like that. Apparently. And he gets on stage and says, I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. And a bunch of 40-year-old women from the 90s go home and fuck their sad husbands for the first time in this calendar
Picturing
year.
the lead singer of Third Eye Blind.
Mindy, she is at her house and she's kind of pondering this huge obelisk that's just in the middle of her space now as Jason rushes in. Mindy's annoyed because she's not getting any alone time. She had to give up her whole backyard. She can't leave her house. And now she can't even be in her house. She asked what this obelisk is, but Jason doesn't have time to explain. Andy doesn't really know. He needs to know where the plunger to murder Derek is. And it's not a problem. And he's like, yeah, okay. Here you go. Cut outside. You know, one time I rebooted him just because he was breathing super loud. And then later he told me he doesn't breathe. So I don't know what that was. And Jason explains
a really funny kind of throwaway
why he's
line.
doing it. You know, I think he's trying to steal my girlfriend. And he says, no, really, I don't care. Just
and I
go
think
ahead.
this is not great behavior from Mr. Jason.
No.
Jason was mature the whole episode. Then he kind of he did a murder.
But this is one of the threads of part 1 of the episode that I think works pretty well as a one episode storyline. Because it is bad, but we get all the parts of this. We get Jason being annoyed by Derek. The problem won't go away. He tries to be the bigger guy. That's completely shut down. Derek just said he was going to destroy him. Like, if you're, it's a funny moment, but if you feel threatened by this guy, and you know that there's a button you can go press that'll make him go away, or will at least make him be a little different, so maybe you won't be as mean to him. It's not good, but I get what led Jason to this place.
Sure.
And Mindy does not mind.
No. She's like, please. Yeah, it's no problem.
So Jason walks up to the button and Derek starts begging for his life, but it's from Mindy. But then he notices it's Jason and he starts talking down to him and says, oh, well, you certainly don't have the Dereks to... and then press the button. And I think Jason Mantzoukas might have Darcy Carden beat for the slow motion, power down death. The way that he makes the meal out of falling down, his legs kicking back up in the air as he falls down, his face just going blank is really funny.
It's really good.
And Mindy says, oh, it's always good. Cut right back to do 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 do, and Eleanor cuts off Simone singing. And tries to put little holes in the armor of her facade, of her going kind of crazy, and says, you know, if this is something your brain's just making it up, isn't this just kind of basic for hallucination? You know, it's like a cocktail party. But then Simone notices and points out the giant Derek head in the sky that's saying, I have been Dereked.
I think that is like really unexpected. Like, I, even having seen this, forgot that happened, and then I was like, oh shit, this is bad.
Of course it does.
Because remember how big a deal it was when Janet popped up there? I have been murdered. Like, that's like, oh shit, I bet that happens.
They had a whole trial to figure out who did it, kind of.
Yeah.
Simone says,
now,
that's
my one
probably
question,
my doctor.
though, is I think it's weird that Derek, who's in the medium place when this happens, when he gets rebooted, Mindy's done it tons of times. One, does this happen every time? And two, why is it happening in the good? I guess this neighborhood is in the medium place, though. So that would make a little bit of sense.
I can't answer it.
I'm not questioning it too much, but...
Has this happened hundreds of times? You're right. Yeah. That's a good hole to poke that I didn't quite think of. I'm too busy laughing at him going, attention, murdered has been me. Back in the office, Michael's really giving it to Jason for murdering Derek, but Jason stresses, no, his eyes were mean. And I think when you hear that, you think his eyes were like this mean, but they were like this mean.
This mean.
Janet pops in and asks Jason what happened and says that it was tough getting the Derek head out of the sky without a bunch of humans noticing. But Jason is truthful and says that he was worried that Derek was sliding into her DMs. But Janet doesn't have time for jealous boyfriend stuff right now. She's got so much writing on her. She says, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And Eleanor just casually has me create popcorn rivers, and Brent won't stop calling me for stuff. But Jason's really focused on their relationship. He's kind of being a little bit of a munch, you know? He's kind of being a bit of a drip. A bit of a,
is he an eater, and did he eat it for lunch?
It seems as such to me. Jason asks if they're still boyfriend, not girlfriend, and all Janet says is, we'll talk about this later.
Oof. That's
I know,
crushing.
Not so good for the big reunion we had at the end of season 3, how exciting that was. Things are rocky, but Janet's got a lot going for her right now, so it makes sense that
a lot of
if she's going to be in a relationship, it needs to be a pretty... like trusting, open, not like open physically, but open emotionally, and go do your thing. I understand you're busy. It needs to be that kind of thing, but Jason can't really do that here. Eleanor says we can forget Simone right now. That's too much. And Janet, you just go and try to keep her away from the others so we can focus in on this Linda. And we got to get her going. We got to jazz her up. We'll sprinkle a little cocaine on her peppermints or something.
That's funny.
That's what they did to Shirley Temple. And that's what got her to
took out
slay JFK. Tahani thinks that it's odd that the bad place would send someone so boring. Tahani is probably the most underrepresented in this episode. I'm just kind of noticing. She thinks it's odd that the bad place would send someone so boring, but Eleanor thinks it tracks. They're just trying to drive us insane, give us someone boring, and we'll go crazy about it.
Yeah.
If that's the case, it's working. So they plan to start Operation Linda bright and early tomorrow morning when Janet sets up Flying Day. And Janet says, cool, I'm not super busy or anything. That should be easy. And we cut to Flying Day. A good throwback to the second episode of the show. It's always fun to see this setup.
Something I was wondering, because you have a longer version usually than I do of the episode.
I don't think I do anymore.
Really?
I think
it's just the same?
Tell me your thing and then I'll tell you why.
Well, I was wondering, are there any, do we see any of the other subjects doing the Flying Day thing?
No. I was not able to secure a DVD copy of season 4. It's hard to find. The ones for sale on Amazon are for different region DVD players from different countries.
Really?
So I went straight to the source a month ago, Shout Factory, who produces it, and I ordered it off of their website, waited about a month, hadn't heard anything. This was a week or two ago. I emailed them. I got a refund because they said they didn't know when or if they would be getting any more. So
That's wild.
I'm watching the episode. I downloaded files of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I paid for Netflix to watch my favorite I paid for Peacock to watch my favorite show. I paid for Netflix to watch my favorite show, The Good Place, and now I think we probably have the same version.
Yeah, okay.
I would love to get a copy of it on
that wasn't
season 4
in mine yet,
point,
and I was like,
it was tough. Yeah. It's Flying Day. Michael asks Linda, we don't see at first how or if she is flying. It's just Michael asking her, so how are you doing? You know, it's Flying Day. All the other people are flying. Maybe you want to fly. And we see that she's just flying a little bit off the ground.
Which is very funny.
Just
visually.
levitating. Okay, if this isn't your thing, would you like to maybe we see you knitting? Would you like to go do some knitting? No, thanks. Eleanor's like, well, I'm looking at your file and I see you like to listen to birds. Man, Michael says, man, Linda, you don't even look at them. Eleanor says, okay, come on, let's just go listen to birds then. Let's go look at birds, whatever. But all she wants is another sweet, sweet peppermint.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a significance with the demon thing to that? Or
I don't think so.
Is this just showing Chris's awful improvisational skills?
I think it's awful improvisational skills, I hope.
Yes, and another peppermint.
Another peppermint, please.
Eleanor says, you can have literally anything you want, and then is interrupted by a swift punch in the face.
Yeah.
Here is my problem with this episode, with this reveal, with this all happening in part 1. We needed more time for them to get so annoying to Chris that he has to do this. It comes kind of out of nowhere.
Twice.
Which makes it jarring and makes I definitely was like, oh my God, when it happened. But that's my problem, is that we don't have enough time to build up to this because there's so much going on that it feels unearned. It feels like, if anything, the Linda thing should have taken a couple of episodes and she should have become more evil or something. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it didn't quite
agree.
work.
One episode is not enough time to build a reveal like this if the Linda plot line is third or fourth on the totem pole. I like, as a plot point, the demons somehow sneaking one of them in there, but I think you could have had it going a lot longer.
You could have really made a meal out of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
it could have been a thing that they find out in 2 or 3 episodes, and are
whether
well,
it's in 1 or 3
experiment.
episodes, it should have had a little bit more heat to it.
Because exactly like you said, the thought that I had was, because when it was about, when they were on Flying Day, I was like, well, it can't happen in this episode. They haven't pissed him off enough yet. I didn't remember which demon was inside, but I did remember that Linda was a demon. I was like, well, they haven't upset the demon enough. They haven't made them do nice things yet. And then the punch just started flying, and I was like, oh shit, I guess it's just happening now.
Yeah, just flying around, kind of superhero launches into the sky.
Which looks cool. I like that it's just, I'm going to beat
cool.
everybody's asses.
And to your point, it's funny, again, thinking about how these aren't real people, that the demon is going and punching people in the face, flies into the sky, destroying everybody. Oh, maybe she's less boring than I thought. That kicks off the end of the episode, where we're back in the office and Sean and the judge are conferencing in to clear up what just happened. At this point, we still technically don't know that means she was a demon.
Yeah.
We just think, what's up with this lady?
What the fuck?
We learn here, clearly, they just say it. The bad place sent a demon in disguise as Linda. And Michael points at her. She rips off the skin suit, revealing the hot, ripped demon Chris, which is the name of my estranged father, which maybe is why I didn't recall that being his name.
Yeah,
until
I didn't
said
remember
it
that
here.
either.
Yeah, another hot, ripped Chris to torment my thoughts.
Yet another constantly shirtless and oiled up, muscly white man to haunt Zach Pruitt.
Yeah, we got Sergio. We got a multitude of Chris's. Michael is furious because this puts the whole experiment at risk. Of course, it's furious. We agreed to these terms. If anything, this is an oversight of the judge, too, who should have been really on top of this kind of thing to make sure that there was no way anything like this could have happened.
They just sneak in.
How did it get by? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't buy that. But whatever. The judge let Michael go to Earth 50 fucking times without realizing.
True. Well,
she's got some Timothy Oliphant.
That's
to
true.
Be
That's very true. She is distracted. And because of this, the experiment was put at risk. He and Eleanor were attacked. Sean's like, Chris, I told you, be casual. I'm not an actor. I keep telling you I'm not an actor. And Sean says he's not going to be anything after this. And my favorite Sean bit here, he says, fine, busted. I'm a rascal. We'll replace him with a real human. But the judge isn't going to allow this. That was their chance. They screwed it up. The last human, she decrees, will be Chidi. I like that we took a little bit of time to get to this, actually.
Yes.
And I like that it wasn't just the judgment at the end of season 3, because that doesn't seem fair. I like it's the bad place fucking something up, being the reason why Chidi is inserted in this way. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Which I like that, too. Because then it feels more earned that Chidi is going to be judged. And I think, if anything, it's going to help in the future let Eleanor and Chidi interact in a different way, because now she has to be a little bit less selfish about it, because Chidi's soul is on the line once again. You know, his growth is important, so she needs to let him go through the process like he did with her.
Sean is not cool with this, obviously, protests, but since he's already had his memory erased, the judge says, not his booty, though.
Not that booty.
This works.
Am I
sure,
right,
it's
girl?
a little bit of an advantage, but you screwed this up. It's going to work out. Not his booty, though. You can't erase that. And I was just, for the love of God, Your Honor, please keep it in your pants. Michael says thank you to the judge and that they accept her terms, while Sean keeps saying that it's not fair. It's like studying for a test and then acing that test that you studied for. There's a good, gaslighting joke here.
How is that cheating? You're just falsely accusing us of what you actually did.
No, that's what you're doing.
The judge shuts Sean down so she can get back to Deadwood and Timothy Oliphant, very important, and lets Sean know that if he so much as breathes on the experiment again, she's going to start the whole thing over from scratch and rip off his eyelids to make him watch soldier-dog reunion videos.
Love those. I watch a lot of those so I can cry sometimes. You ever watch sad videos to cry because you need a good cry, Zach?
Yeah, but I don't think... I don't know. I don't want to out myself. I don't want to be a real BoJack Horseman here. But
no, I don't really give a shit about that part of it. But the dogs being excited makes me emotional.
Yeah, the soldier thing doesn't really. I don't know.
Zach hates the troops. It's okay.
I remember people watching those videos and just being like, "Am I dead inside?" I like dogs, but it did make me cry. I don't know. Maybe I'm a sociopath. Maybe.
It's always time.
The last scene of the episode, I think this really abruptly ends the part 1 and makes it kind of an odd choice that they did air it as 2 separate episodes, because it's building up a little momentum and then it just ends. We're at the train station and a train comes hurtling in and hits all this stuff that's on the track, and Bad Janet comes out.
Round of applause for Bad Janet.
She's here to take Chris, yes, looking as great as ever, texting while driving.
Love it.
Putting stuff in the track just to run into it. Here to get Chris. But Michael isn't just going to let her take him. They're going to handcuff Chris to a bench on the train. Not that I don't know what that would really do that much once they're away from them. But whatever. It makes them feel a little bit better. Bad Janet teases them a little bit. And I'm surprised you guys figured this out, because we all thought you were so stupid. Oh, Tahani figured it out? Wow, that's embarrassing for you. Seems like you're royally forking this up like we knew you would. But Michael... in the end of the episode, sends her off with a message. You tell Sean, booyah. Make sure you do the hand mode. Make sure you do exactly what... Can you actually show me how you're going to do it, because it's really important. The train takes off, and a graphic reads, to be continued. Is that how your episode ended?
Yeah, that's how mine ends. The only reason why this scene works a little more for me is because I think I remember where they go with the seeds that Janet was sowing in next week's episode, because I think that the Bad Place tries to kind of pit, because if the things I remember about this season, without trying to spoil anything, is they try and pit members of the gang against each other a little bit, and I think the first one that maybe that happens with is a perceived power struggle between Tahani and Eleanor, maybe.
Interesting. I don't remember this. And that's my whole criticism for this episode, is that a lot of it's hanging up in the air until we see the end of part 2. But because it was aired as its own episode, I am looking at it as one episode. And I think it's got a lot of really good stuff. Like, talking through it, I liked parts of the episode more. I think the Jason and Derek story is really well thought out. I like seeing the melodrama with Eleanor having to tend to Chidi and tend to Simone. I like a lot that's going on in this episode. I just don't think it has enough room to let all of the stuff it does breathe, so the twist at the end doesn't hit as hard as it should.
I agree.
And then it just kind of leaves, and I'm ready to watch the next one. But because it's its own episode, that's where we leave for the week.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts as we put this episode to bed, as we send it off on a train, handcuffed to a bench, never to be seen again?
You know, I think I am leaning like more than not like on this episode.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I like a lot of things. I agree that the demon reveal falls flat. I think that there's a lot to fit in this episode, and I think we get a little bit of a lot, which sometimes can work. In this episode, I think it mostly does, but I was just left feeling like, yep, I've seen the first half of a 2-part, story.
Absolutely.
And it made me want to see the second part really badly.
Me too. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm not mad. I'm just
which I think is part of the job of part 1. But like you said, this aired as its own thing, so we need to look at it as its own body of work. And as its own body of work, it is found wanting.
Well, as we dive into the final season of The Good Place, and as we wrap up this episode of the podcast, we've got a few last things to attend to, namely being to award for the first official time of the season who's going to The Good Place, who's going to The Bad Place. I'm still tossing around some options. Do you mind starting with your Bad Place?
I'll go with my Bad Place. So I think this episode has a lot of candidates for Bad Place. Honestly, there's a lot of not great behavior. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate. I'm not giving it to Eleanor. I considered giving it to Jason, but I'm not going to, because I think that Jason, for the first half of the episode, was really good. I think the bad thing he did could have had really bad ramifications, but because Janet cleaned it all up, it wasn't all that bad.
I decided mine. I just want it to be shown before you say yours that it did not decide yours. Mine. Yes. Who's yours?
I also considered giving it to Norway's best boxer, because that was pretty bad behavior. It's a Bad Place person. So I ended up landing on Brett as my Bad Place win, because he's
I believe it's Brent.
Brent?
I think it's Brent.
Or Brett? I don't know. He looks like a Brett to me. So in my heart, he will be Brett, but let the record show that his name might be Brent. Because I think he's just kind of grody. I think the actor does a really funny job.
Sergio, can you take that out of your mouth real quick? Write down
Come
Brett,
on, Sergio.
please.
I need at least one hand free for writing. You know this.
Sergio, you're starting to suffocate me.
I don't care if it's covered in oil.
I know it's a 5x5. I know the patrons are paying you $6,000 an hour to feed me grapes, but you're starting to fucking cramp my style.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steven.
Can we have a chat with Sergio when we finish
stop,
this?
Sergio. By God, let me finish.
But I'm going to give it to Brett. I think that he earns the most Bad Place points. I also think that Simone is an option, but I don't blame Simone, because Simone is thinking, well, I need to act this way so I can wake up because I'm dying. So I don't hold anything Simone's doing against her.
Where I've gone with this is a character that's not in the episode that much, but I'm going with them because, one, they're not a Bad Place person, and two, everything that they do that's bad, there's no moral, this is kind of why I'm doing this. I feel like every time she shows up, it's fair to give it to Mindy St. Clair. She is just willing to let Derek be killed over and over again. She's so frivolous to everything. Wow. She's taking no part in anything. She's not in the episode a lot, but at least everyone else who's making a bad decision is fueled by something. What is she fueled by? Other than just
Mindy,
it's fun.
The fact that she has to live in her goddamn attic now? Come on. I think Mindy's deserved some hostilities, but I'll take it.
I'm with you, too, that there are a lot of options, but most of them have caveats, and so I landed on Mindy. What about the Good Place?
Hey, I'm not mad at. My Good Place was really easy. It was an instant thought for me. I think people have good episodes this week, but the person who really is doing the most for the greater good this week for me is hands down Janet. I'm sure we'll get more into her frustrations next week, I hope, so that she gets some, respite, so that Janet gets some help, because she's really holding everything together. Eleanor is just willy-nilly flying by the seat of her pants. Michael's ineptitude at the end of last season has now caused Janet to have to work 3 times as hard, because she has to explain and do everything.
She has to be so many things for so many different people. And yes, she gets frustrated, and she doesn't even lash out. She just like lets people know that she's exhausted, and then that's not accepted. And she still keeps working just as hard and making everything work for everybody. I think there's a chance that this final season we're going to have some good places to give out for Chidi. And I like that here in Chidi, we've just got the purest, simplest, happiest, just nothing possibly could he ever do wrong. But Janet is taking the brunt of so much, and I think that's got to give her the good place. For me as well. Yeah. Janet, easy.
Great Janet.
That's the first week, and that's the first podcast of the final season of The Good Place. We dove deep into it. I had a lot of fun, and next week we're going to be right back here to talk about A Girl from Arizona, Part 2. We hope you're there. If you want to send us in some thoughts about any of the upcoming Season 4 episodes, you can always get a hold of us at timeknifepod@gmail.com. And if you like this podcast and you want to hear more of us, you want to support us to help us take it further, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. You can get The Basement, which is almost done with its first season. You can go listen to a whole first season of a Rewatch podcast that you can only hear on Patreon, along with all the other fun bits and bobs we do over there, like getting your name read out on the podcast every week and the pre-show and all of that stuff. Steven, where else, though, as you know and they know, where else can the people find us?
Well, if your temporal lobe is
I thought you were going to go with if you were Timothy Oliphant.
Timothée Chalamet. If you're any of those, then...
The kid in Interstellar being Timothy Chalamet blew my fucking mind.
Holy shit, I forgot.
He's the young son in it. And Will and I were both like, because we hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah, are you going to see the new Willy Wonka?
I'm officially in my Oscar rewatch mode. I'm trying to catch up with things. If anything, there's a chance that movie gets nominated for like visual effects or like adapted screenplay or one of the little ones. I hope that Hugh Grant
gets nominated. That's all I want.
I have a feeling I'll end up watching it, but it's not at the top of my list. I'm not. Yeah, like I said to you earlier today, if you're going to see a movie over the holiday season, maybe see the Holdovers before you go to Wonka.
Before I go to the Wonks. But come in Wonkar Oompas over on X or
Oompa
Twitter or
Oompa.
Thread. We're not on Thread, but go follow us on Twitter and Instagram over at Time Knife Pod. We're also on YouTube where you can see the video companion to this podcast. See Gooby, see Zach's new microphone for me. He's on this side. I don't know where he'll be when we really do it. See what I've got on the wall. Go check us out on YouTube. Search the name of the show.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. It's a pleasure to talk to you every week, Steven, to joke around with you and to talk about our love of The Good Place and our love of Kraken Wise and our love of each other here every week for our listeners. Until next time, everyone. Steven, why don't you get us on out of here?
From inside the Time Knife. Black Lives Matter.
I'm Zach.
I'm Steven.
And we will see you next week. Figments of our imagination. What if everyone that listened to the podcast and you was a figment of my dying brain? Do you think that's possible?
Is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see you next week.
Bye.
I want something else to get me through this semi-talk kind of life. Baby, I want something else. I'm not listening when you say goodbye.
I need a sip of water.
Sip it. I don't have a problem with how you just drank your water, but it did make me wish that you picked it up with like two tiny baby hands and held it at the bottom of the cup and went like this. That's what I wish you did, but you didn't. There we go. Yeah, I'm just a
There's
baby.
no way this doesn't end with me spilling water all over myself.
Or over your brand new microphone.
Just imagine that I'm Barry Keoghan and you're Jacob Elordi after taking a bath.
He's in it. I hate him. Is that how you say his name?
I think so.
It's
Jacob
not Elderoy?
No, it's Elordi.
Wow, hate him even more. Hate that guy.